said no. Just no. No explanation, no apology, no long speech about my feelings. Just no. And my brother looked at me like I'd slapped him across the face. That moment keeps replaying in my head. Not because I regret it, because I can't believe it took me this long. Let me back up. My brother's name is Fletcher. He's 31 years old, and for most of those 31 years, someone else has been cleaning up after him. When we were kids, it was our parents. When he got his first apartment at 23, it was our mom co-signing the lease. When he lost that apartment 2 years later, not because of some tragedy, not because of a layoff, but because he simply stopped paying rent. It was our dad who covered the deposit on his next place. And when Fletcher needed someone to bail him out last spring, it was going to be me, except it wasn't. I want you to understand something before I go any further. I didn't grow up in a family that talked about money. We didn't sit around the dinner table discussing budgets or savings or what it means to be financially responsible. What we had instead was this unspoken rule: you help family. You don't ask questions. You don't make people feel bad. You just help. And for years, I followed that rule. I'm 32 now. I have a small apartment in Columbus, Ohio, that I pay for entirely by myself. I work in healthcare administration. Not glamorous, not the kind of job people write movies about, but it's steady, and I worked hard to get there. I took out loans for my degree. I paid them off. I built my savings account slowly, carefully. The way you do when you know nobody's coming to rescue you if things fall apart. Fletcher never did any of that. Fletcher dropped out of community college after one semester. He worked at a string of restaurants, a moving company, a call center for about 3 weeks before he quit because, and I quote, the vibe was off. He's charming. Everyone loves Fletcher at first. He's the kind of person who makes you feel like the most important person in the room when he's talking to you. He's funny and easy and good at making people feel warm. He's also the kind of person who will borrow $50 and genuinely forget he ever asked. Over the years, I had lent Fletcher money 4 separate times. $100 here, $200 there. Once, $350 when his car insurance lapsed and he was about to lose his job because he couldn't drive to work. He paid back exactly none of it. I stopped asking after the second time because I realized asking made me feel worse, not better. I just quietly accepted that the money was gone and moved on. I told myself it was fine. I told myself it was my brother and this is what you do. Our mom helped him more than I did. I didn't know exactly how much until last spring, but I knew it was significant. She never said it directly, but there were hints. The way she'd mention Fletcher going through a rough patch every few months. The way she'd redirect the conversation when I asked how he was doing financially. The way she'd say, he just needs time to figure things out, in this voice that made it clear she did not want to discuss it further. Fletcher is her favorite. I've known this my whole life and I made my peace with it a long time ago. Or I thought I had. Here's what happened. It was a Sunday in April. I had driven 40 minutes to my parents' house for my mom's birthday dinner. I'd brought flowers and a card and a gift card to her favorite garden store, the one she spends half her weekends at. I was in a good mood. It had been a decent week. I was looking forward to a quiet family dinner and maybe a piece of the chocolate cake my dad always makes from scratch. We were sitting at the table, me, my mom, my dad, my aunt who had driven down from Dayton, and the food was good and the conversation was light. My mom was talking about her tomato plants. My dad was telling some story about a guy at his office. It felt normal. It felt nice. And then my mom said it. She didn't look up from her plate. She was cutting her chicken, and she just said it like she was commenting on the weather. Oh, by the way, Fletcher's going to be staying with you for a while. Probably just a couple of months. I stopped chewing. I looked at her. She still hadn't looked up. I'm sorry, I said. He's between places right now, she said, still focused on her plate. You have that second room. It just makes sense. I looked at my dad. He was looking at his fork. My aunt suddenly became very interested in her water glass. Nobody asked me about this, I said. My mom finally looked up, and the expression on her face was not apologetic. It was not uncertain. It was the expression of someone who has already made a decision and is simply informing you of the logistics. I know it's not ideal, she said. But he's family. He doesn't have anywhere to go. Have you ever had a moment where something lands on you and you feel the weight of every single time before that moment, all at once? Like the current situation is just the surface, and underneath it is every time you said yes when you meant no, every time you moved over to make room, every time you told yourself it was fine because it's family. That's what I felt sitting at that table. The $100, the $200, the $350 for the car insurance. Every quiet accommodation, every swallowed frustration, every time I told myself I was being a good sister. No, I said. My mom blinked. What? No, I said again. Fletcher is not moving in with me. The table went completely silent. My mom set down her fork. She looked at me the way she used to look at me when I was a teenager, and had said something she considered embarrassing in public. This isn't the time to be selfish, she said. I'm not being selfish. I'm answering a question that you made a decision about without asking me. It's not a question, she said. He needs help. Then he can come stay here, I said. You have a guest room. That landed differently than I expected. My mom's expression shifted in a way I can only describe as caught. My dad cleared his throat. And in that pause, I understood something I hadn't fully put together before. They had already decided he wasn't staying with them. They had already decided the solution was me, and they had done all of this without a single conversation. Your father and I can't handle that right now, my mom said. He needs space, he needs to figure out his own living situation, I said. He's 31. You don't understand what he's going through. I understand that this is the third time in 4 years he's needed to be bailed out. I understand that I've lent him money that was never paid back. I understand that I was not consulted about any of this before it was apparently decided. My mom pushed back from the table slightly. I can't believe you're doing this on my birthday. And there it was, the redirect. The shift from the actual issue to my behavior, my timing, my tone. I had seen this move my entire life, and I had always folded when I saw it. I would feel guilty, I would apologize, I would find some middle ground that wasn't really a middle ground at all. Just me, backing down, dressed up as a compromise. I didn't fold this time. I'm not doing anything, I said quietly. I'm telling you my answer. My mom stood up from the table. She walked into the kitchen. My dad gave me a long look that I couldn't fully read, somewhere between sorry and please don't make this worse. And then he followed her. My aunt reached across the table and quietly touched my hand. She didn't say anything. She just left her hand there for a moment. I sat there and breathed. Fletcher called me that night. I was back in Columbus, sitting in my car in the parking garage of my apartment building, because I hadn't quite been ready to go inside yet. My phone lit up with his name and I answered it. He didn't open with hello. He opened with, "What happened at Mom and Dad's?" I said you couldn't stay with me. I said. Why? I almost laughed. I didn't. Fletcher, you can't just show up in someone's life and expect them to reorganize it around you. That's not how this works. I'm your brother. I know you are. I don't have anywhere to go, he said, and his voice dropped when he said it. That particular drop that Fletcher has perfected over the years, the one that makes him sound genuinely devastated. And maybe he was genuinely devastated, but I'd also heard that voice when he wanted me to cover a bar tab and when he needed someone to call his landlord for him, and when he asked me to lie to our mom about where he'd been one Thanksgiving weekend. The voice was real. The feeling behind it was probably real. But the voice had also been used on me enough times that I couldn't separate the genuine from the strategic anymore. You have options, I said. You can stay with Mom and Dad. You can look for a room to rent. You can call 211. They connect people with transitional housing resources. There are options, Fletcher. Mom and Dad don't want me there. Then that's something you need to figure out with them. Not me. He was quiet for a moment. You've changed, he said. Maybe, I said. Or maybe I've just stopped pretending. He hung up. I sat in my car for another 20 minutes. I want to be honest with you about how I felt in that moment, because it wasn't triumph. It wasn't that clean feeling you see in movies where the character stands up for themselves, and the music swells and everything feels resolved. It was more complicated than that. There was relief, yes, but underneath the relief there was grief. Real grief, for the version of my family I had spent my whole life trying to maintain. For the relationship with my brother that might have been different if anyone had ever loved him by saying no. For the years I spent making myself smaller to make room for his chaos. I cried a little. And then I went inside. The next 3 weeks were not easy. My mom sent me a text the Monday after the birthday dinner. It was 3 sentences. I hope you're proud of yourself. Your brother is sleeping on a friend's couch. Family means showing up for each other. I read it. I didn't respond. Not because I was being cruel, but because I didn't have anything to say that would have mattered. She had already decided who I was in this story. I couldn't change that with a text. My dad called me on a Wednesday. He was gentler about it. He didn't say I was wrong exactly. He said he understood where I was coming from, but he hoped I would reconsider. He said Fletcher was struggling in ways I might not fully see. He said our family needed to stick together. Dad, I said, when you say family sticks together, who specifically do you mean? He didn't answer, because the way it seems from where I'm standing, I said, is that what you mean is that I should accommodate whatever Fletcher needs. That's not everyone sticking together. That's me carrying something alone. My dad was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I hear you, and I believed he meant it. He just didn't know what to do with it. The hardest moment came about 2 weeks after the dinner. I got a call from a number I didn't recognize, and when I answered it, it was a woman named, well, she introduced herself as someone who knew our family, a counselor Fletcher had apparently started seeing. She said she wasn't going to share anything confidential, but that Fletcher was in a difficult place, and she had heard there was some family conflict, and she just wanted to reach out to see if there was any possibility of. I stopped her. I respect that you're trying to help him, I said, but it wasn't appropriate for him to give you my number without asking me first. And it's not appropriate for you to call me like this. I'm not part of his treatment. If he has concerns about our relationship, those are between him and me. She apologized. She seemed a little flustered, honestly. I think she had expected me to be either a pushover or a screaming villain, and I was neither, and she didn't have a script for that. I hung up and sat with the weirdness of it for a while. Someone had called me on my brother's behalf, probably at his suggestion, possibly at my mom's. And even that, the call itself, the pressure it was meant to apply, was so familiar. This is how it always worked. Not one direct conversation, but a network of soft pressures. A text here, a phone call there, a counselor reaching out, all of it designed to make me feel like the difficult one, the unreasonable one, the one creating the problem. The problem was not me. I want to say that clearly. The problem was not me. I had a small guest room in my apartment. It was 10 by 10 feet. It had a daybed and a lamp and a small dresser I'd bought secondhand. It was mine. I had worked for it. I had paid for it. And the idea that I should turn it over to my 31-year-old brother indefinitely, not for a week, but for a couple of months, a phrase that in my family had always meant until someone makes us leave, was not a small ask. It was a restructuring of my entire life. My routines, my space, my sense of safety in my own home, all of it handed over without being asked. And the thing I keep coming back to, the thing that I couldn't have named when I was sitting at that table but I can name now, is that my mom wasn't asking me. She wasn't even really telling me. She was informing me of something she had already decided, as though my consent was a formality, as though I was a resource to be allocated, not a person to be consulted. That is the part that broke something open in me, not just the request, the assumption underneath it. It has been about 3 months since that birthday dinner. I want to tell you where things stand. Fletcher is sharing an apartment in Cincinnati now with 2 other guys. I know this because my dad mentioned it on a call 2 weeks ago casually, the way you mentioned something you hope someone will take as a sign that everything worked out fine. And Maybe in some ways it did. Fletcher found something. He figured something out, the way my mom always insisted he would, eventually, given enough time and enough help from whoever was closest. The difference this time is that the help didn't come from me. My relationship with my mom is different now. I don't know if different is the same as worse. It's more honest, maybe. There's less performance on my end. I stopped attending the monthly family dinners for a while, and when I went back last month, I sat at the table and I felt like myself in a way I hadn't in years. Not comfortable exactly, but real. My dad and I talk more, genuinely more. I think my answer at that table, the no, the follow-through, the not folding, surprised him in a way that made him look at me differently. Not with disappointment, with something closer to recognition. My aunt called me about a month after the dinner. She had been the one who touched my hand that night. She said, "I've been waiting a long time for someone in this family to say what you said." She didn't explain further, and I didn't push. Some things don't need to be explained. As for me, I'm okay. More than okay. Most days. My apartment is still just mine. The guest room has a new plant in it now, a pothos I bought at the farmer's market on a Saturday morning because I could, because I had time, because my Saturday mornings belong entirely to me. I go to the farmer's market and I buy plants, and I come home and I put them in the room that is still mine, and I feel something I don't have a perfect word for. Not pride exactly. Not relief exactly. Something more like the feeling of finally putting down something heavy. I carried a version of my family story for a long time. A version in which I was the responsible one. The capable one. The one who could handle it. The one who would be fine. And being fine meant absorbing whatever needed to be absorbed. It meant saying yes. It meant making room. I am still the responsible one. I am still capable. I still love my brother, in the complicated, bruised way you can love someone who has cost you a lot and doesn't fully understand the cost. But I am not a solution. I am not a resource. I am not a guest room. I am a person. And that person finally said no. If you've been sitting with your own version of that dinner table, that moment when someone announces something about your life like they've already decided, I just want you to know, you are allowed to answer. You are allowed to say no. Not cruelly, not dramatically, just clearly. The word is small. 2 letters. And it is yours. What would you do if someone made a decision about your life without asking you? I'd really love to hear in the comments. And if this story resonated with you, it would mean a lot if you liked and shared it. There are a lot of people out there who need to hear that no is a complete sentence. I'll see you in the next one. I've been thinking a lot about cause and effect lately. Not in some abstract philosophical way. Just the quiet, practical kind. The kind you notice when you finally stop doing something you've always done, and you watch what happens next. For years I said yes. Not because I wanted to, not because I had carefully weighed the options and decided yes was the right answer. I said yes because yes was what kept the peace. Yes was what made me the good daughter, the responsible one, the one who could handle it. And every yes led directly to the next ask. That's the part I didn't see clearly until I was sitting in my car in a parking garage at 9 o'clock on a Sunday night, my hands still on the steering wheel. My phone lit up with my brother's name. The pattern was always there. I just kept choosing not to look at it. What I understand now, and I wish I had understood it 10 years earlier, is that the way you respond to people teaches them what to expect from you. Not in a cold or calculated way, just honestly. When I kept absorbing the cost of Fletcher's decisions, I was teaching everyone around me that the cost was mine to absorb. I wasn't doing it consciously. I was doing it because I loved my family, and I wanted to be a person who showed up. But there's a difference between showing up and being available for arrangements that were never agreed to. That distinction, between generosity and assumption, is one I had to learn the hard way. The no I said at that table wasn't just a no to Fletcher moving in. It was a no to a version of myself I had been performing for as long as I could remember. The version who makes herself smaller. The version who measures her worth by how much inconvenience she can absorb. The version who confuses self-erasure with love. That version was exhausted, and honestly, she deserved a break. What I've come to believe after all of it, the birthday dinner, the texts from my mom, the call from that counselor, the 3 weeks of silence, is that real strength is not the absence of guilt. I felt guilty. I still have moments where I feel it, but I didn't let the guilt make the decision for me. That's the part that took work. Guilt is loud. It sounds very convincing. It has my mother's voice and my brother's particular drop in tone when he says he has nowhere to go, sitting with that guilt and not acting on it. That was the hardest thing I've done in a long time. Fletcher found a place. He figured something out. And maybe that's the most honest argument for what I did. The moment I stopped being the solution, he found one. I'm not saying it's always that clean. I know it isn't. But in this case, the yes I had always been about to say would not have helped him. It would have helped him avoid the discomfort that led him to actually solve something. My apartment still has that pathos in the guest room. It's doing well, for the record, growing toward the window the way plants do. Not because anything is pushing it, just because the light is there and it is simply, quietly, doing what it's meant to do. I think about that sometimes. You don't have to force it, you just have to stop blocking the light.